Have you ever wondered why some women walk into a room and the entire atmosphere bends to their presence, while others fight endlessly to be noticed? This is not simply beauty, wealth, or charm. It is something far deeper, an inner sanctuary, a guarded temple of selfhood that no one dares to profane. These women do not negotiate their worth, because their worth is not up for negotiation. They are guardians of an inner space that is sacred, and that is why their lives carry a gravity men cannot resist and circumstances cannot easily shake. Carl Jung once said the feminine soul, the anima, is both radiant and fierce, tender and unyielding. In every woman lives an archetype of the priestess, the queen, the warrior, and the sage. Yet most women are taught to suppress these aspects, to replace depth with pleasing, to exchange their crown for crumbs. They are conditioned to believe that validation is love, that attention is affection, that being chosen by someone else is proof of being worthy. But in this illusion, they unknowingly abandon their temple and leave its gates unguarded. What happens when you leave your temple unguarded? Strangers enter. They rearrange the furniture of your soul. They speak lies into your inner sanctuary until you can no longer recognize your own voice. You start to crave what destroys you. You start to mistake chaos for passion, manipulation for romance, and control for commitment. And in the mirror, the woman looking back at you seems hollow, not because she is weak, but because she has forgotten that her heart was always holy ground. Imagine this: a man encounters a woman who refuses to be shaken, who carries herself not with arrogance, but with an unspoken certainty. Her silence feels louder than another woman's pleading. Her absence is heavier than another woman's constant presence. This is not a game, this is spiritual alignment. She has learned to protect her temple, to filter who is allowed past the gates, to ensure that no man's shadow is cast over her light without her consent. And because she does not chase, she is pursued not out of manipulation, but because true strength always draws reverence. But how does a woman become this guardian of her own soul? How does she rise from betrayal, neglect, or heartbreak and emerge untouchable, yet still profoundly loving? This transformation does not happen by accident. It happens when she confronts her shadow, the hidden parts of herself that hunger for approval, the fears that whisper, "You are not enough," the wounds that beg for someone to fill them. Jung taught that what you refuse to face will rule you in secret. A woman who refuses to meet her own shadow becomes enslaved by it, endlessly seeking in men the affirmation she will not give herself. But a woman who integrates her shadow becomes whole, and wholeness is magnetic. If a man senses that you do not need him to complete you, he feels both curiosity and respect. He cannot play savior because you are not looking to be rescued. He cannot manipulate scarcity because you do not fear solitude. Your solitude is your throne. Your silence is your scripture. Your boundaries are not walls. They are gates guarded by wisdom. This is not about rejecting men. It is about rejecting dependency, rejecting the hunger that makes you blind to red flags, rejecting the urge to barter your peace for fleeting affection. Every temple has its sacred fire. For some women, that fire has burned low. Years of compromise, betrayal, or self-betrayal have dimmed it. But fire can be rekindled not by someone else's match, but by your own courage to look inward. When you sit with your pain, when you stop running from loneliness, when you allow the silence to speak to you rather than terrify you, the fire returns. And when it does, you will not only feel its warmth, others will feel it too. Men will sense it in your presence, though they will not always know what it is. Some will be drawn to it with reverence. Others who seek control will fear it and flee. Either way, your temple remains intact. Do you feel that stirring inside you, the knowing that you were meant for more than chasing, pleading, or proving? That knowing is your sacred self calling you home. The woman who guards her temple does not fear loss because she knows that love cannot be stolen, only given freely. She does not cling because she understands that anything real will meet her at her level, and she does not compromise her worth because she remembers she was the treasure long before anyone came seeking her. Most women are taught to build their lives outward, not inward. They are told to gather achievements, relationships, and possessionships as proof of their value. But rarely are they told to build the invisible cathedral of their own soul. And yet, this unseen work is the very thing that determines whether life bends toward empowerment or descends into quiet despair. A woman who is unguarded becomes a mirror for the projections of others. Jung warned that whatever is unconscious you will be projected onto those around you. And they, in turn, will project their shadows onto you. An insecure man will try to make you small because his own ego trembles before your light. A man who fears abandonment will bind you with control because he has not yet faced his own emptiness. If you have not faced your own shadow, you will accept this treatment as love. You will interpret chains as commitment and mistakes as destiny. But when you awaken, when you look clearly at your patterns, you begin to see with piercing eyes. You no longer confuse being desired with being valued. There is a reason the Stoics spoke so often about control. Not control of others, but control of the self. Seneca wrote, "No man is free who is a slave to himself." The same is true for women. If you are enslaved to the need to be chosen, you will mistake almost any attention as affection. You will hold open the doors of your temple to thieves and call it generosity. The first act of inner freedom is to close the gates, not in bitterness, but in clarity. You choose carefully who enters, not because you are cold, but because your soul is warm and sacred. When a woman begins to live like this, her energy changes. Men notice it instantly. Some are intrigued, others are unsettled. The ones who are used to manipulating weakness will feel powerless because there is nothing to grasp. You do not answer to their anger, you do not bend to their charm, and you do not fear their absence. Your detachment is not a game. It is simply that you have remembered your worth, and you do not need to bargain for it. This is the mystery of feminine strength. It is not loud, yet it echoes. It is not aggressive, yet it cannot be conquered. The great feminine archetypes, the wise woman, the priestess, the queen, do not chase or beg. They radiate such inner wholeness that others must rise to meet them or fall away. And when a man encounters such a woman, He must decide, will he ascend to her level, or will he retreat into the shadows of his own immaturity? Either way, she remains unmoved. But becoming this woman is not simple. It is not about memorizing clever phrases or perfecting an image. It is not about acting strong while secretly starving for attention. It is a deep, often painful process of facing your own darkness, your fear of rejection, your craving for validation, your hunger to be completed by someone else. When you stop running from these parts of yourself, when you sit with them as though they are frightened children and bring them home, something extraordinary happens. The shadow loses its grip. The hunger quiets. You begin to love yourself with the same intensity you once begged others to give you. And when that love is real, men feel it. They may not understand it intellectually, but they sense it in their bones. Your presence no longer asks, will you choose me? Instead, it declares, I have already chosen myself. That declaration is more powerful than beauty, youth, or charm, because it is rooted in the eternal rather than the fleeting. Picture this: a man approaches you with charm that once would have disarmed you, but now you see his words not as honey, but as a mask. You do not hate him for it. You simply see clearly. If his heart is true, you open the gates. If it is not, you do not waste your fire on shadows. This is the power of discernment, not from suspicion, but from wisdom. This wisdom is the torch you carry through life. It illuminates every face, every offer, every promise. It exposes what is real and burns away what is false. And as this light grows, you begin to see that your worth was never in question. It was only hidden, buried under years of noise, fear, and longing. Now, the excavation has begun, and what is emerging is not fragile. It is unshakable. When a woman awakens to this truth, her life begins to reorder itself in ways she cannot always control, but must learn to trust. Friendships that once seemed essential suddenly feel hollow. Relationships built on dependency start to crack under the weight of her clarity. Men who were drawn to her compliance disappear when they can no longer manipulate her silence. This is not loss, it is purification. The temple is being cleansed. Jung taught that individuation, becoming your true self, is a path marked by both light and shadow. It demands that you shed illusions, even cherished ones. You may grieve the versions of yourself who tolerated disrespect, who mistook chaos for love, who thought suffering was the price of connection. But as these old skins fall away, your soul grows luminous. A woman who embraces this process no longer fears solitude because she has discovered that solitude is not emptiness, it is sacred space. This is where the Stoics and Jung converge. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." Replace man with woman, and the truth remains unchanged. The inner temple is the only fortress that cannot be taken, the only sanctuary where no betrayal can reach you. And when you finally sit there, alone yet whole, you realize how little the world can offer that compares to inner peace. But peace does not make you passive. True peace gives birth to power. A woman who no longer fears abandonment cannot be coerced. A woman who no longer hungers for validation cannot be bought. A woman who no longer lives for approval cannot be silenced. She becomes radiant not because she is performing strength, but because she has nothing left to prove. Men sense this in ways words cannot explain. It is not arrogance, it is essence. Your presence feels like a mirror, forcing them to confront who they are without your compliance to soften the reflection. Some will rise, feeling inspired to become worthy of entering your temple. Others will shrink, exposed by the light they cannot bear. This is why your energy changes the room, not because you are trying to change it, but because you have already changed yourself. There is an alchemy in this transformation. The parts of you that once ached for attention are transmuted into discernment. The longing that once made you restless becomes deep, unshakable stillness. The tears that once fell for others become the water that nourishes your own soul. You become your own guardian, your own healer, your own compass. And from this place, you do not repel love. You refine it. You attract only what resonates with your new frequency. Picture a woman walking away from a man who thought she could not live without him. Her steps are steady, her silence deafening. There is no anger in her eyes, only clarity. This is the power of the feminine archetype at full strength, not vindictive, but sovereign. She has remembered that her temple was never meant to be occupied by anyone who does not bow in reverence to it. And yet, this strength is not about walls or coldness. It is about sacred openness. The gates of the temple do not stay locked forever. They open freely to those who have proven themselves worthy, to those who approach with respect rather than entitlement. The woman who knows her worth is not loveless. She is more loving than ever because her love is no longer tainted by fear. She loves from abundance, not from lack. In this place, relationships become a choice, not a necessity. You do not beg to be kept because you do not fear being alone. You do not lower your standards to avoid loss because you understand that losing what is false is never loss at all. You live as a woman who does not seek to be chosen. She chooses. This is the shift that terrifies weak men and captivates strong ones. Weak men seek women they can shape. Strong men seek women who are already whole. And when a whole woman meets a whole man, there is no battle of egos, no games of control, only reverence. But until such a man arrives, she does not wait in despair. She builds her temple higher, polishes its golden walls, and tends to its sacred fire. As this sacred fire grows, a profound transformation begins, not just in how a woman views men, but in how she views herself and the world around her. She no longer divides her life into wins and losses, approvals and rejections. She sees every experience as an initiation, every heartbreak as a teacher, every disappointment as a door closing so another may open. What once broke her now refines her. What once made her doubt herself now sharpens her vision. Jung described this as integrating the shadow, taking what was unconscious, fearful, and fragmented, and making it whole. The woman who does this work no longer hides from her insecurities, nor does she pretend to be invulnerable. Instead, she stares directly into the places that once terrified her. She traces the outlines of old wounds and says, I know you. I understand you. You are mine, but you no longer rule me. This quiet courage is what turns suffering into wisdom and vulnerability into unshakable power. There is a calmness about her now. She does not rush to explain herself when misunderstood. She does not fight to prove her value to those who cannot see it. Like water, she flows around resistance rather than wasting energy crashing against it. Yet beneath this softness lies steel, an unyielding inner law that says, I will not betray myself for anyone. Epictetus taught that no one can harm you unless you give them power over your mind. A woman who understands this no longer grants access to her peace so freely. She may open her heart, but she no longer surrenders her soul. She does not confuse compassion with self-sacrifice, nor love with slavery. The temple stands open to those who come in reverence. But to intruders, the gates remain closed without apology. This clarity transforms how she relates to love itself. She no longer romanticizes pain. She does not mistake chaos for depth, nor does she believe passion must come with wounds. Love, to her now, is not a storm to survive, but a garden to cultivate. She recognizes that a man's attention is not the prize. Her own self-respect is. And because she honors herself first, she draws only those who are capable of honoring her as well. But there is something even deeper happening beneath the surface. This woman's energy shifts not only in romance, but in every area of life. Opportunities appear where doors were once closed. Friendships deepen or dissolve, revealing who truly belongs in her inner circle. Even strangers notice something different, a presence, a gravity, an aura that cannot be faked. It is the unmistakable signature of a soul at peace with itself. And yet, do not mistake this peace for passivity. It is an active, vigilant force. She guards her time as fiercely as her heart. She no longer entertains what drains her, no longer clings to what diminishes her. Every yes is deliberate. Every no is final. This is the discipline of self-love, not indulgence, but devotion. Picture her again, standing in a crowded room. Others speak loudly, grasping for attention, but she does not need to. She carries her temple within her, and people feel it without knowing why. Some are drawn in awe, others in fear. This is what happens when a woman embodies the Jungian archetype of the sovereign. A woman fully individuated, no longer living by borrowed scripts, no longer performing to fit someone else's mold. Strong men recognize her instantly. They do not approach with games, because games cannot enter sacred ground. They step carefully, aware they are standing before someone who cannot be swayed by charm alone. This kind of woman does not inspire infatuation. She inspires reverence. And if he is wise, he rises to meet her. If he is not, he fades. And she does not look back. For in the end, her power is not in who chases her, but in who she no longer feels the need to chase. The woman who has become a true guardian of her temple knows that nothing real will ever require her to abandon herself. She no longer measures her worth by how tightly she can hold on, but by how gracefully she can let go. As the final veil lifts, something remarkable occurs. She stops searching for herself in the eyes of others. This is the ultimate liberation. She no longer needs a man to tell her she is beautiful to believe it, no longer needs his presence to feel whole, no longer fears his absence as a reflection of her value. She has become a complete circle, no longer a broken line waiting to be closed by someone else's approval. Jung would call this individuation fulfilled, the union of shadow and light, the marriage of the inner feminine and inner masculine. Her soul is no longer at war with itself. She has faced her hunger for validation, embraced her fear of abandonment, and allowed them to dissolve in the steady fire of self-acceptance. In this alchemy, she becomes both fierce and serene, a woman who is deeply loving, but utterly untouchable. This is the woman who understands that her temple was never meant to be a marketplace. No transaction, no performance, no bargain can purchase what she has become. Those who enter must come not to consume, but to honor. And because her soul radiates such quiet strength, life itself begins to bow in return. Opportunities appear where once there were only obstacles. The wrong people fall away without struggle. The right ones arrive without force. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Her thoughts are no longer fear-driven or desperate. They are rich with self-respect, colored with calm certainty. She does not wait for life to validate her. She moves through the world as one already validated by something far greater, her own spirit. What does love look like for such a woman? It is no longer a battlefield, no longer a test of endurance or a gamble for survival. Love becomes a meeting of equals, two temples facing one another, each standing in its own sacred ground. She does not collapse into him, and he does not seek to control her. There is no hunger, only harmony, no desperation, only desire freely given. But here lies the paradox. By no longer needing love to complete her, she becomes irresistible to the kind of man who is whole within himself. He is not threatened by her strength because he has faced his own. He does not shrink from her boundaries because he respects his own. Together, they do not consume each other. They illuminate each other. This is what love was always meant to be, not captivity, but communion. And yet, she knows that even if no man arrives, she is not lacking. Her life is already full. She walks through each day with the dignity of someone who has nothing to prove. Her solitude is not loneliness. It is a throne room. Her silence is not emptiness. It is music only she can hear. She smiles not because someone chose her, but because she finally chose herself. This is the rebirth. This is the woman who has passed through the fire and come out gold. No longer does she chase. No longer does she beg. No longer does she bargain with her soul for crumbs of affection. Her heart is open, but her crown is untouchable. The world may test her, men may try her, but nothing can unmake what she has become. And when she does love, she loves with power, because her love is not a plea, it is a gift. She gives it not to fill an emptiness, but to share her overflowing abundance. And if ever it must end, she does not shatter. She blesses what was, releases what is no longer, and walks on in peace. For she knows that nothing truly meant for her will ever require her to betray herself to keep it. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.